economics and says, well, although things are going well, your wages really aren't going up, are they? Wouldn't you like perhaps that we gave you a few more services than the government's offering? We'll do more in health and in education. So there's a big divide, if you like, between the national feeling and the very personal feeling that Bill Shorten's trying to get across to voters. Now, look, the government's trying to counter that by also offering tax cuts and even some cash payments to try and let people feel that they are benefiting from a good economy.
Quite often, Chris, in a campaign where voters are a bit disillusioned by both sides, which I think is pretty fair to say about Australian politics at the moment, it is the small moments in the campaign, the little small mistakes that turn into big issues. Have we seen any of these so far, any of these gaffes?
We watch for these all the time, and yes, the worst of all has to be at this stage Peter Dutton, who said of his Labor rival in a seat that obviously is on a very small margin, she has an amputation above the knee. He said she was using her disability as an excuse not to move into the electorate. Now, that blew up in his face. He doubled down for a couple of days but was forced to apologise yesterday. Look, one of my favourite moments so far has been yesterday in Sydney when the Prime Minister stepped up to an Asian Australian woman and said, "Ni hao," and she said, "No, I'm Korean." So, bit of an issue there. And then there was Bill Shorten at the Royal Easter Show with a kid on his lap, and I mean a kid, a baby goat, which appeared to have relieved itself on him. So never, as you know, Richard, never work with children or animals.
But there are plenty of both in election campaigns, funnily enough.
Yeah, look, it's fascinating. They both seem to be campaigning pretty well, but we'll be following your reports and what's going on with much interest. Chris, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, it is time for a hit of sports news now, and it's over to Clint in Melbourne.
Today's Sports Report brought to you by Subway. Now available for delivery on Uber Eats, so you can enjoy Subway at home.
Thank you so much. Yes, good morning again from Melbourne and good morning to you at home. Let's get the latest from the Masters first and foremost, because in his quest for a 15th major title, Tiger Woods says it all feels a little different this year at Augusta. Players will actually begin their final round tonight, Australian time, due to the threat of storms. The four-time Masters champion sits just 2 shots behind leader Francesco Molinari.
Tomorrow's going to be an early wake-up call and get the body going and get the mind ready. And it's going to be a little bit different going off of, 2 tees, threesomes. And it just, it doesn't feel like Augusta National.
Aussies Jason Day and Adam Scott are still in the hunt, but they've got a fair bit of work to do. They've slipped to finish 7 under par. AFL, the Premiers didn't have it all their own way against crosstown rivals Fremantle. West Coast tall forwards proved the difference with 3 goals each from Kennedy and Darling.
It was a grind, no doubt. And I think people are still trying to get a read on where Fremantle are at, and we're still working ourselves out as well. But I think they're better than what some people think. So we, we're accurate at the start, and we just held them at bay for most of the night.
So the Kangaroos are now up and running, defeating the Crows by 12 points. Later today, the Suns host Carlton, and St Kilda and Hawthorn will do battle at Marvel Stadium. And the Roosters shot out of the blocks in the second half against the Sharks. Trent Robinson's side holding on for a 30 points to 16 win at Cronulla. Meanwhile, Tyson Frizzell returns for the Dragons this afternoon. They play the Bulldogs at Cogra. That match will be live and free on the 9 network. Of course, all eyes on the Masters at Augusta. Brett Ogle has played there a couple of times before, former tour professional and now Drummond golf ambassador. He's going to join us for his insight a little bit later, in fact, in about 25 minutes from now.
Look forward to that one, Clint. Thank you. Now let's get a hit of the weather with Tim, who joins us from Sydney.
Jano, good morning. Coming to you from the Powerhouse Museum this morning, and we're in one of their feature exhibits, which is well and truly underway for the school holidays, and it's the Star Wars Identities exhibit. I'm up close and personal with Master Yoda here. Just fascinating. All the bits and bobs in this exhibit are from the Star Wars movies. This one's from way back in the 1980s, of course. Master Yoda being a puppet that was used on film by George Lucas, and take a look at the detail of that. That's a latex puppet. You can see all the little hairs and whiskers and everything coming out of him in that cloth robe. Just extraordinary, the amount of detail that's gone into creating that. And then, of course, in the more recent films that we've seen with Star Wars, they've actually used that latex puppet to create and map the CGI off him to build Yoda as he was a little bit younger in all those prequels that we're seeing more recently that Disney has done. So just extraordinary, and loving every second of reliving my childhood, essentially, as we go through this exhibit. Something well worth checking out throughout the school holidays. But as Yoda would say, check the weather maps, we will. I've been trying to practice that all morning, but it was an absolute disaster. So let's take a look what the weather is doing around the country for you today. In Cairns, a shower or two and 29 degrees. Partly cloudy and 30 in Townsville. In the Sunshine Coast, a shower or two and 25 degrees. Partly cloudy and 27 in Brisbane. A shower or two and 26 degrees. On the Gold Coast, a shower or two as well and 23 for Sydney. Canberra, cloudy and 21 degrees. Melbourne, mostly sunny and 22. Hobart, partly cloudy and 18 degrees. Adelaide, cloud clearing and 28. Perth, a shower or two and 24 degrees for you today. In the Alice, sunny and 33 degrees, and Darwin, sunny and 34 degrees for you. All right, Damien, who is our curator here at the Star Wars Identities exhibit at the Powerhouse Museum, been showing us some of these models. What are these? Are these just models, or are these legit used in the film as well?
Oh, they're legit used in the film. So they are models, so they got model makers to actually make them from designs. And they're made from parts of other kit models that you can buy off the shelf.
Yeah.
And
so that Star Destroyer looks absolutely massive in the actual film, but that's the size that they used?
that's the size they used, but the way they made it seem like a gigantic object is they set up the camera on dollies and moved them along as if they were filming something the size of a building.
Yeah, ahead of their time when they were doing this stuff back in the 70s and 80s, just extraordinary. I said last half hour that the Chewbacca demo was extraordinary as well. Look how tall that actually is. Now, great story behind the man that was actually Chewbacca. He was a delivery man who fell into this role, really.
That's right, Peter Mayhew. They couldn't find an actor who was tall enough.
Yeah.
Peter Mayhew was a delivery driver and they asked him if he'd like to do some acting. He's been in every movie since.
Wow, so he was dropping something off on set and he got roped into wearing that. That is made out of yak fur.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's animal pelt.
There you go. All right, extraordinary stuff here, guys. Loving every second of this exhibit this morning. We've got something else very cool to show you in half an hour. See you then.
Thank you, Tim. Very good indeed. Well, right around the world, millions and millions and millions of people are waiting with bated breath for the final season of one of the most popular shows in history to go to air.
Yes, Game of Thrones Season 8 is almost here, airing tomorrow morning, and here to go through the phenomenon with us is James Matheson, co-host of Thrones